Every year, more than 9,000 persons in Germany are diagnosed with leukemia. There are various forms of the disease, which all fall under the common heading of blood cancer. All forms have their origin in the bone marrow, where cells of the blood and immune system are newly formed from stem cells. Most blood cells are very short-lived, so the body has to constantly renew them. In the case of leukemia, however, this system breaks down. The bone marrow produces huge quantities of defective white blood cells, so-called leukocytes, halting the production of other vital blood cells. Often, the only way of saving the lives of patients with leukemia is by giving them a transfusion of stem cells from a healthy donor. This is known in medical circles as allogenic stem cell transplantation, whereby the cells can be taken from either the donor's bone marrow or blood. The transplanted stem cells combat the patient's defective cells and help the body to establish its own new, fully functional blood and immune system.
Eine wichtige Voraussetzung für die Stammzelltransplantation ist, dass man einen geeigneten, einen verträglichen Spender für das Knochenmark findet. Ähnlich wie bei den Blutgruppen gibt es auf den Knochenmark und auf den Blutzellen Gewebemerkmale, die uns alle unterscheiden. Und es ist so, dass man für eine Knochenmarkspende einen möglichst gut passenden, gewebeverträglichen Spender suchen muss, damit die Transplantation gute Aussichten hat auf Erfolg.
The human leukocyte antigens, HLA for short, determine a person's tissue type and are of vital importance here. These are the characteristics found on the surface of all body cells, by which our immune system is able to distinguish between our own and unrelated tissue. There are hundreds of hereditary and distinctive variants of each of the 5 main tissue markers, so in theory there are trillions of possible combinations. Consequently, it is highly unlikely that any 2 people will have the same tissue types. The most common HLA pattern in the German population has a frequency of 1 to 300, i.e. 1 person in every 300 can donate their stem cells to a patient with the most common HLA pattern. Most people have much rarer types, however. In fact, in extreme cases, someone can have a pattern so rare that there isn't a single suitable donor anywhere else in the world. If stem cells that do not match the patient's HLA type are transplanted, there is an increased risk of serious incompatibility reactions.
Diese Reaktion kann von einer einfachen Hautrötung bis zu schwersten Veränderungen wie eine Verbrennung aussehen, mit chronischen Veränderungen, mit Leberentzündung, mit Darmentzündungen. Alles auch kann nicht nur Tage, sondern kann Wochen, kann Monate, manchmal auch Jahre dauern und kann auch letztendlich zum Tode führen.
Finding a suitable unrelated donor can be vital for the survival of a large number of patients. Less than a third of them are fortunate enough to have a suitable donor in the family, in most cases a brother or sister. The vast majority of patients have to rely on an unrelated donor. Doctors looking for a suitable donor contact a so-called search unit. These are usually attached to university hospitals or blood banks. The search units organize the search for a donor using the network of the German National Registry of Blood Stem Cell Donors, known by its German abbreviation ZKRD. First, a member of the search unit staff enters the patient data and HLA characteristics in the ZKRD system online. Searching for and finding suitable stem cell donors is an extremely complex process, which is why, in 1989, the Baden-Württemberg section of the German Red Cross Blood Transfusion Service in Ulm began to collect donor data from all over Germany. Special computer programs were developed to allow optimum evaluation of this data.
Im Herbst 1991 wurden dann diese vorarbeiten, honoriert dadurch, dass das Bundesgesundheitsministerium uns den Auftrag gegeben hat, ein zentrales Knochenmarkspender-Register für Deutschland zu gründen. Das ZKRD wurde zuständig für die Sammlung aller Spenderdaten der deutschen Spenderdateien und wurde die zentrale Stelle, an die dann Ärzte, die für ihre Patienten nach einem geeigneten Spender suchen, anfragen konnten, und zwar aus dem Inland wie auch aus dem Ausland.
The ZKRD currently has access to the data of more than 4 million potential donors in Germany and over 18 million worldwide. This makes the ZKRD the manager of the largest data bank in Europe, with one of the most efficient registries in the world, responding to more than 20,000 search requests from Germany and abroad every year. Due to its excellent infrastructure, the ZKRD contributes to more than 5,000 stem cell transplantations per year, more than any other data bank in the world. To date, more than 4 million volunteers in Germany have been registered as a stem cell donor at one of the almost 30 German donor centers. Unpaid volunteers often canvass for new donors, as shown here at a company in southern Germany. Anyone between 18 and 55 years old and without major health problems is eligible as a donor. The new donor is registered after taking part in an informational interview and signing a consent form. A 10 milliliter sample of venous blood is then taken, a procedure that lasts about 15 minutes. The newly registered donor's tissue characteristics, the so-called HLA pattern, is determined in the laboratory. The donor's blood group is unimportant. The donor's data is then transferred to the ZKRD network under an anonymous donor number. After registration, the donor is available for patients all over the world. Unlike the donor centers, the ZKRD itself does not recruit donors or conduct campaigns, but is concerned solely with patient-specific searches and the management of administrative processes.
Zentrales Knochenmarkspender-Register, Ulm, Meck, guten Tag. Ich würde mir gerne die Mitgliedschaft einen unserer Patienten bestätigen lassen.
Search approval is given as soon as all the patient data and documentation required are available. Around a third of all searches on behalf of German patients are successful in as little as 4 weeks. A suitable donor for more than 2/3 of all patients is found in 3 months at the latest. The success rate in searches for unrelated donors for German patients is higher than 80%. All this has become possible through continuous improvements to electronic information systems and ever-increasing precision of upfront tissue typing. A list of potential donors is available only a few minutes after the search has been activated. The search unit has immediate and direct access to this list by fax, on the internet, or via a computer network. One of the great strengths of this new OptiMatch procedure developed by the ZKRD becomes apparent when the lists are compiled. Even if tissue typing has not been carried out completely or was carried out by means of outdated and less precise methods, the biostatistical procedure is still able to indicate the probability of a potential candidate to be a suitable stem cell donor.
Für Patienten mit sehr schwierigen Gewebetypen, die vermutlich keinen passenden Spender finden können, kann uns OptiMatch auch helfen, unter den leicht differenten Spender wiederum denjenigen gezielt zu identifizieren, bei dem diese Differenzen vermutlich am geringsten ausfallen werden.
This gives search unit staff members a solid foundation for deciding on the donors they require additional information about. They simply select the most promising donors from the list. A frozen or fresh blood sample from the donor is requested via the ZKRD network and sent to the search unit's laboratory, where technicians verify the HLA data and confirm it using state-of-the-art typing methods. There is about a 10% probability that a registered donor will be invited to take part in further tests at a later date.
Was steht weiter an?
The ZKRD acts as the German hub, which has the advantage that many processes can be coordinated centrally and are therefore easier to manage. One example is the processing of cross-border and sometimes even transcontinental invoicing of healthcare insurance institutions for services rendered. As soon as the results of potential donors' confirmatory tests are available, they are compared with patient data one last time. Then the list is sent to the physicians responsible for treatment, who decide which donor will be selected for the patient.
Australien? Das ging auch, ja.
The responsible donor centre is informed via the ZKRD network, as only this centre has access to the donor's full identity. The donor undergoes a comprehensive informational interview and a thorough medical examination. If these do not reveal any medical objections and the donor agrees to donation, the search is complete and further preparation of donor and patient for transplantation can now proceed. The patient undergoes a course of chemotherapy, often in combination with radiotherapy, to destroy malignant cells prior to the transplantation. This also results in the destruction of virtually all the healthy stem cells in the patient's bone marrow, which at the same time prepares the homing of the healthy donor cells. At this stage, the patient is highly susceptible for serious infections and receives special prophylactic treatment. The classical method of harvesting stem cells is by extracting bone marrow. This is performed under general anesthesia by removing approximately 1 litre of bone marrow and blood from the donor's pelvic bone, a process which takes about an hour. The risk is minimal and is confined almost entirely to the anesthesia. The donor can be discharged from hospital after a day or two, and the extracted bone marrow is completely regenerated within a few weeks. Nowadays, however, the so-called peripheral blood stem cell transplantation method is more frequently used. For a period of 5 days, the donor is given medication that stimulates the production of stem cells and causes an overspill of some of the surplus cells into the bloodstream. Donors often experience flu-like symptoms during this phase, but ordinary medication generally brings relief here. A special blood purification process is employed, similar to outpatient dialysis treatment, to extract the stem cells from venous blood. This process involves the blood being taken from a vein in one arm, passed in a continuous cycle through a special cell separator, and then transported back into the donor's bloodstream via a vein in the other arm. The procedure is conducted on an outpatient basis and takes several hours. The probability that a registered donor will actually be required to donate stem cells at all is about 1%. On request, the ZKRD organizes and coordinates worldwide courier transportation of the tissue product so that transplantation material reaches the patient as rapidly as possible. The stem cells are with the patient between 24 and 36 hours after they have been harvested, however remote their origin. The actual implantation of stem cells is incredibly simple. They are introduced into the bloodstream in the same way as a blood transfusion. The cells find their own way to the bone marrow and lodge there. However, it usually takes at least 2 to 4 weeks for it to become apparent whether the new stem cells are doing their job properly and forming new, healthy blood cells. In most cases, the patient never actually meets the donor. In the first 2 years after the transplant, only anonymous written communication is allowed. After this period, patient and donor can meet if both parties expressly agree to it. Initial evidence that the patient is producing new blood cells with the donor's stem cells becomes apparent after 3 weeks. Increasing numbers of immune system cells and blood cells are produced. The risk of infection decreases. While it is now more and more likely that the patient will make a full recovery, this may still take several weeks or even months.